Welcome to The Explainer. We're going to dive into a massive, ancient book today by asking a pretty simple question about how it's all put together.
I mean, think about it. You've got 66 different books written over centuries by all these different authors. It really seems like just a collection of stuff, right? Histories, poems, letters. But what if there's a single plot line that ties them all together? We're going to dig into the work of Dr. David Mathewson and explore this really cool idea that underneath all that diversity, there's actually one big unified story. You know, a story with a clear beginning, a massive conflict, and eventually a resolution.
Okay, so every good story has to start somewhere, right? It needs a setting, a place where the rules of the world are laid out. To really get this single story of the Bible, we've got to go right back to the beginning, Genesis chapters 1 and 2, and see how the world was supposed to be. This is the original blueprint.
All right, first things first. The absolute foundation of this entire story, the number one rule of this world is that God is the king. He's the sovereign creator. Everything that happens, every single character, every event, it all takes place inside his creation and under his authority. That's ground zero.
So then, God creates people, Adam and Eve. But here's the thing. They aren't just background characters hanging out in the scenery. No, they're created in God's image. And that's a huge deal. It basically means they're his official representatives. Think of them like royal deputies tasked with spreading his good and glorious rule all across the world.
So how does this relationship between the king and his deputies actually work? Well, it's laid out in what's called a covenant. It's basically an agreement, and it's super simple, but also incredibly profound. If humanity follows God's design, they get blessing. But if they rebel, well, there are consequences, a curse. And this agreement, it's going to drive the whole plot of the story.
All right, so you've got the king, the people, the agreement. Next up, the stage. God provides the land. And we're not just talking about dirt and trees here. The Bible describes it as this amazing gift, a perfect place designed for blessing where this whole relationship between God and humanity can just flourish.
And right in the heart of this perfect land is the Garden of Eden. You could almost think of it as a kind of temple. It's this sacred space where heaven and earth literally meet. This is the spot where God's presence hangs out directly with his people. Pretty amazing, right?
Okay, let's recap. We have a perfect king, his trusted representatives, a perfect deal between them, and a perfect place to live. The stage is set for a flawless story. But you know, every great story needs a conflict, right? It needs some kind of crisis that threatens to burn the whole thing down.
And boom. In Genesis chapter 3, that conflict hits hard. Humanity decides to break the covenant. And this isn't just some small mistake. This one act of rebellion completely shatters the original blueprint. Just look at how everything gets flipped on its head. Blessing turns into cursing, a perfect relationship with God becomes a broken one, and dwelling in that amazing land becomes exile from it.
So now, the central problem of the entire Bible has been established. God's perfect world is broken. His representatives have totally failed their mission, and now they're kicked out of the land, exiled from that sacred space where God's presence was. Honestly, the story could have just ended right there as a total tragedy.
But it doesn't end there. This is where the story takes a huge turn. It stops being about a perfect world and starts being about how that perfect world is going to be restored. The rest of the Bible, from this point on, is really the story of the resolution. It's this long, epic journey to get the original blueprint back on track.
And this is where the plot gets really interesting. You might expect some huge cosmic event to kick off the restoration, but that's not what happens. Instead, it all starts really quietly. It starts with God calling a single, totally unsuspecting guy named Abram, who we later get to know as Abraham.
Now, pay close attention to the promises God makes to this guy, Abraham. Do they ring any bells? God promises him a land. He promises to make him into a great people. He establishes a formal covenant with him. And he promises to bless him, directly reversing the curse from Genesis 3. See what's happening? It's a direct echo. It's like a reboot of all those core themes from the original blueprint back in Genesis 1 and 2. This isn't some brand new plan. It's the beginning of the Great Restoration plan. So, here's the main takeaway, the thing you really got to get. The story of Abraham and his descendants, the nation of Israel. It isn't some side plot or a new story. It becomes God's chosen way of fixing the huge conflict from Genesis 3 and ultimately restoring his original perfect plan for all of creation. And when you see it this way, it just changes how you read everything else in the Bible. Suddenly, all those laws given to Moses, the poems and songs and the Psalms, the histories of the kings and prophets, they're not just a random collection of documents anymore. You start to see how they all fit into this huge three-act drama: creation, fall, and the long, epic story of restoration.
So once you have this single story in your head, it's like having a map to the whole Bible. It helps you follow the plot from Genesis all the way to Revelation. You can see the connections, you can understand the conflicts, and you can finally start to grasp what the resolution is all about. Which leaves us with a pretty big question, doesn't it? If Abraham is just the first step in fixing the blueprint, where in the world does the rest of the story lead? How does this massive conflict finally get resolved?